Hey there guys, welcome to part 2 of your final exam review, the day 2 review. So this one will cover the rest of the questions on your review, including slope rate of change, graphing equations, writing equations from a graph, and 20 bucks. So we begin with number 11, which is slope and rate of change. Remember, rate of change just means slope. It's another word for slope. It's actually slope in the real world context. So for example, miles per hour is an example of slope in the real world, but we call it rate of change because it's telling us at what rate something is changing. So for example, if you're going 30 miles per hour, well, every hour you're increasing 30 miles. That's how much it's changing. Or it will cost $10 per hour you spend renting a video game. Something like that. You understand the idea, rate of change. So number 11 says the table of values shows a linear relationship between x and y. And we're given this table right here. And it says, what is the slope of the line represented by the table of values? Well, we have a slope formula. So that is a good place to start. Our slope formula is y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So that's your slope formula. But you need an x1, y1, x2, y2. So to be able to get these values, we get it from our table. X1 just means my first x, y1 just means my first y, and second x, second y. So now I know what values I'm going to use. So for my y2 minus y1, my y2 value is 1 minus my y1 value, which is 9, my x2 value, which is negative 2, minus my x1 value, which is negative 7. Now in this case, since I'm doing minus x1 and my x1 was negative 7, I have a case of double negatives. Well, you should have talked about in your class that double negatives become positive. So I'm just going to rewrite that. So you can put this into your calculator if you would like, or you can do it one by one, whichever way you prefer. So 1 minus 9 is negative 8. Negative 2 plus 7 is 5. Then you would check, does this fraction simplify? Can I do 5 divided by 8? Now, if you're not good at simplifying fractions, then what you can do is go to your calculator and say, okay, well, control divide, negative 8 divided by 5, divided by 5. If it gives you the same fraction back, it means it does not simplify. You could have also, if we've done control divide, put our equation exactly as it was. So we go 1 minus 9, and the negative 2 plus the 7. And you still get the negative 8 over 5. So we continue for number 12. So the graph of the line shown on the grid, the graph of the line is shown on the grid. The coordinates of both points indicated on the graph of the line are integers. So that means they're perfect points. What is the rate of change of y with respect to x for this line? Remember, rate of change means slope. So they just want us to find slope. Now you can still use your slope formula, or you can do rise over run. Now for these type of graphs, where there's a lot of dots and it's easy to miscount because the squares is so tiny, you might want to use the slope formula. Or you can still do rise over run. So zoom in on your screen. I'm going to try to zoom in. So my triangle will go from here to here. So I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So up 10. And to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now since I went to the left 12, that's going to be a negative 12. Which makes sense if you look at your graph, your line is decreasing, so it makes sense that we would have a negative slope. So always double check if my slope I wrote in a fraction is negative, is the line on the graph negative? So in this case, you want to check if it simplifies. You can do the same thing you did before. Say, okay, what number divides into both 10 and 12? Or you can use your calculator and say, okay, well 10 over negative 12 will simplify. Well, my calculator froze. Oh, there we go. To negative 5 over 6. So always double check to see if your fraction simplifies. Now, if you're given 2 points, you're going to solve it similarly where you want to find the slope. It says, what is the slope of the line that passes through the points 26, 7 and negative 39, 12? So we're still going to do the same thing we did before with our x1, y1, x2, y2. And we're still going to use our slope formula. So we're going to use this formula that's up here. So y2, which is 12, minus y1, which is 7, over x2, which is negative 39, minus x1, which is 26. And we can put that into our calculator. Let's see if my calculator is working. So 12 minus 7 over negative 39 minus 26. And it gives me negative 1 over 13. So always double check to see that you're using the correct formula. So that you don't accidentally put the y's on top of the put the x on top of the y's, or add instead of subtract. So always be careful when doing these problems. But that is as simplified as you can get. Leave it as a fraction, do not turn it into a decimal. Number 14 is exactly the same. So we'll still do x1, y1, x2, y2. And I'm still going to use my slope equation that's up here. So I'm going to do my y2, which is 17, minus my y1, which is negative 11. So y2 minus y1, that's this part. And then x2 minus x1, so my negative 9, minus my 5. Put that into my calculator. 17 minus 11 over negative 9 minus 1. And it gives you negative 3 over 7. And your calculator will give you answers in simplest form, so we know this fraction can no longer simplify. So we will move on to the next part, which is equation. So what if they give you an equation and they say, what is the slope of the graph of y equals 12x minus 9? Well, this is in the form. of y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope. Well, the m, the number in front of x in this case, is 12. So, m equals 12. You're done. You found your slope. This one, the second equation, is in point slope form. So your y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. You should have seen this equation a lot in Unit 5. M is still our slope. So if we look at our equation, the m is the number in front of the parentheses. So in this case, the -3. So you're done. The final form is something we call standard form. Ax plus by equals c. So for number 17, notice standard form, there is no m, which means standard form does not tell you slope. You actually have to go from standard form to slope-intercept form so you can be able to find your slope. So what we're going to do is that we're going to rewrite my equation. 2x plus 10y equals 20. You want to get your x by itself, so you have to cancel it out. So to get rid of that 2x, I'm going to do minus 2x, minus 2x. These 2 x's cancel out. You bring down your 10y. I'm going to write my negative 2x plus 20. Remember, these two values do not combine. One has an x, one does not. So I'll just take that negative 2x and write it here, and I'll take this positive 20 and write plus 20. Your last step is to divide by the y number. Divide everything by the y number. You get y equals negative, and you'll say, okay, well, can I simplify negative 2 over 10? And you can. It'll become negative 1/5 x. And then, can I do 20 divided by 10? Yes. It'll give you 2. Now that it's in slope-intercept form, we know in slope-intercept form my slope is the m value. So my slope is a negative 1/5. Notice, you could not tell that your slope is negative 1/5 just by looking at it in standard form. You have to convert out of standard form to find your slope. So, my slope is negative 1/5. You'll do the exact same thing in number 18. It's also in standard form. You can tell if it is in standard form if x and y are on the same side. So I'm going to rewrite it. We have x minus y equals 4. Now, anytime I see a variable by itself, I know it has a 1 in front of it. So I'll write my 1's in because it makes it somewhat easier. So we still start similarly. I'm still going to cancel out my x. This time I have a positive x. So I'll subtract it from both sides to cancel out that 1x. I'm left with a negative 1y equals the negative 1x plus 4. Still cannot combine, so I'll just write my x first, the negative 1x, and it's a positive 4, so I put plus 4. And since I had a minus y, I had to bring down that minus 1 to make it negative 1y. Divide by negative 1, by everything, to give you y equals negative 1 divided by negative 1 is positive 1. 4 divided by negative 1 is negative 4. But this problem is only asking for slope, which once again is a number in front of x. So in this case, it is the 1. M equals 1. Which you couldn't really tell just by looking at the original problem. So, that's slope. Writing equations are what you did in Unit 5. So we will, almost skipped 2 questions. Writing equations from a graph is what we did quite a bit ago. So on your final exam, you'll be given a graph and you'll have to match it to the correct equation. Well, we'll be using the one we were using earlier, your y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope and b is your y-intercept. So your first thing, you find your b at your starting point. Your b is the point at which your line crosses the y-axis. Well, here I can see that it crosses at 4. So I'm going to have y equals mx plus 4. Then you have to find your rise over run. Find your slope. So you pick 2 points and find how much you go up 1, and over 1, 2. Sorry, you're going to hear my dogs in the background. This is a positive slope, so you are increasing. So you have a slope of 1/2 x. And that's it. That's your equation. You'll do the same thing here. You start by finding your y-intercept. In this case, I see I have a y-intercept of 5 because that's where my line touches the y-axis. So y equals something plus 5, since it's a positive 5. Then I will pick 2 points and find my rise over run. I'm going to go down 2, which is negative 2, and over 1. So down 2, over 1. Now simplify your fractions if possible. I know that negative 2 divided by 1 is just negative 2. So a simpler way of writing this equation is y equals negative 2x plus 5. For writing equations, this is what you saw in Unit 5. So the rest of the review is the most recent stuff we have done, and you just got tested on it. For writing equations, when you are writing equations, we are using this formula. Y minus y1 equals m, x minus x1. So for number 21, it says, okay, we have to write an equation that is parallel to this equation and passes through the point 8, negative 7. So our first step is always to determine our slope. We need to find my m. Well, if it's parallel, I know parallel means same slope. So whatever slope my original equation has, I'm just going to use the same slope. Well, we talked earlier that slope is a number in front of x in slope-intercept form. In this case, my slope is a 6. So y minus whatever my y1 is equals my slope, 6, x minus whatever my x1 is. Your x1 y1 are the points they specify it crosses through these 2 points, or this 1 point. So in this case, it's the 8, negative 7. So the 8 and the negative 7. So my y is the negative 7 since it's your second number, and your x is the 8. Double negatives make it positive. From here, you are just getting y by itself. So we're going to distribute. 6 times x is 6x. 6 times negative 8 is negative 48. You bring down your y plus 7. Then you subtract 7 from both sides. You get y equals 6x. Negative 48 minus 7 is negative 55. And that is your answer. So just what you did in Unit 5. For number 22, you're going to do something very similar. We are still going to use your y minus y1 and x minus x1 equation. You use this in your writing equation. So, write an equation, okay, of a line that is perpendicular to a line represented by y equals negative 3x minus 1 that goes through the point 6, negative 3. Perpendicular is an important word. So what perpendicular tells us is that we have to flip and switch. It is our opposite reciprocal. So we have to flip our fraction and switch our sign. So first we find our original slope. I'm given a graph this time. Oh, this graph doesn't belong here. Whoops. Ignore that graph. I'm given an equation, so we're going to use this equation, and we are going to find my original slope. My original slope is -3. And if I'm going to flip and switch that, this is really -3/1, which is going to become 1/3. Negative will become +1/3. So we're going to use the point +1/3. So I can start setting up my equation, y minus y1 equals m, which I just found, which is 1/3, x minus x1. And then, same thing as last time, they give me my x1, y1 in the problem. So the 6 is my x, and the -3 is my y. Double negatives become positive. So now I will distribute 1/3 times x is just 1/3 x. 1/3 times -6 is just 2. -2, because it's positive times negative. Y plus 3. Subtract 3 from both sides. Y equals 1/3 x minus 5. So this problem was just a typo. Whoops. My bad. You didn't need this graph. So ignore that part. So then, we have 2 more problems of these type. We see the word perpendicular again, so we know we're going to flip and switch. And they give me a table of values. So first I have to find my slope from this table of values. So x1, y1, x2, y2. And I'm going to use my formula, y2 minus y1 is x2 minus x1. Where my y2 value is 9, my y1 value is 7, 2 minus 1, which is going to give you 2/1. Because 9 minus 7 is 2, and 2 minus 1 is 1. But we're perpendicular. So I'm going to have to take this and flip and switch it. So 2/1 is going to become 1/2. And positive 2/1 is going to become negative. So that is my perpendicular slope. Remember, this symbol just means perpendicular. So now I can start filling in my equation. Y minus y1 equals m, which we just found, which is -1/2, x minus my x1. And we are going through the point 0, -4. So 0, -4. We also end up with double negatives again. Doesn't always happen. So I can bring that down. I'll distribute the -1/2. Anything times 0 is 0, so -1/2 times 0 is 0. Then -4, -4. Y equals -1/2 x minus 4. For the next problem, be careful, read it. These were kind of mixed up. Usually you're used to seeing all the parallel problems together and all the perpendicular problems together. Read your problems carefully. This one's parallel, so we will not have to flip and switch. So we'll start the same way we started the previous problem, in that we want to find our slope. So we're going to subtract my y value, 16, minus the 13, and then my x2, -3, minus my -1, which will become plus, 16 minus 3 is 3. Negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. So you get negative 3 over 2. Do not flip and switch. This one wants to be parallel. So we'll have y minus my y1 value equals m, the same slope, x minus my x1. And my x1, y1, be careful, are the points they specify I have to pass through. So negative 6, negative 4 is my x, negative 6 is my y, double negatives will become positive. I will distribute. Negative 3 halves times x is just negative 3 halves x. Negative 3 halves times 4, I would suggest using your calculator for this. So that will be negative 6. Bring down y equals 6. Last step, to get y by itself, subtract 6 from both sides. Y equals negative 3 halves x minus 12. So these are the more difficult problems on your final exam, so make sure you know how to do these problems, and make sure you know how to do it if you're given the equation, or if you're given a table of values. The last two questions on your review are hoi thus. So these are the ones where you say, is it touching the x or y axis? Touching the x axis. So x equals, what number is it touching? 8. X equals 8. You're done. Is it touching the x or y axis? It's touching the y axis. So y equals, you can kind of not see it, but it's a negative 6. So those should be the easiest ones on your final exam. So this completes your review for your day 2. If you have any questions, stop by for tutoring. Good luck on your final exam. Have a nice day.